Hello and happy President's Day, February 21st, 2022. For this year's this year's President's Day, what I wanted to do was go over a list that I created based on careful analysis of the 12 best presidents in American history. Okay, now this list was compiled on the heels of a older list that came out a couple of weeks ago on the 20 worst presidents in American history, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, some of the usual culprits were on the list, such as Herbert Hoover, Jimmy Carter, Andrew Jackson, George Bush I, George Bush II, Donald Trump, of course. Everybody knows who those guys were. Not a lot of people, however, know who Zachary Taylor was. But for this President's Day, I wanted to go over a list of the 12 best presidents that American history has ever had. Okay, up to this point, and the future, we'll see. Okay, so with no further ado, happy President's Day, and let's begin the list. Coming in at number 12. Dwight D Eisenhower. Oh yeah, real quick before I get started here, I'm going over the list from the best president ever is number 1, okay? And it goes from 1 to the 12th best president ever, okay? So it's a list of 12. So on the list for number 12 is Dwight D Eisenhower. Successful general in World War II. He came in as president in 1953 and served under a great economy, bringing the unemployment rate down to about 1.5% to 2%. So I definitely feel he deserves to be on the list of at least number 12. He also was the president who ushered in the building of the major highways, interstate highway system throughout the United States. Well-accomplished leader, excellent president. I put him on the list at number 12. Number 11, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, of course, was one of the founding fathers of the country, also a great president. He was the third president. He basically built the economy into an agricultural system, appointed great justices, and defined the judicial system that would be the standard for American law going forward. Number 10, Teddy Roosevelt. Now, Teddy Roosevelt, of course, was the founder of the progressive movement in the early 1900s. He also was the one who ushered in the building of the national parks, created a lot of federal land throughout the country, accomplished leader for his time, so I put him in at number 10. Number 9, George Washington, another one of the founding fathers, very successful general in the Revolutionary War. He presided over much of the founding of the country, including the ratification of the Constitution in 1791. Okay, and he was very accomplished. He set the stage and the standard for what the presidency would be going forward. Number 8, Harry Truman. Harry Truman, of course, was ill-prepared for the presidency when he came in, having to do so on the death of FDR. But in doing so, he was very successful in rebuilding the economy after the Great Depression, helping us win World War II, and setting the standard for American democracy in the face of major threats overseas, like the Soviet Union. And he also led us through the Korean War. Number 7, Bill Clinton. Now, this is where we get to some of the presidents who had to inherit major crises and disasters from their predecessors. Bill Clinton inherited a very weak economy from George Bush I. He rebuilt it. He set the stage and the standard for American democracy, and sought to make America a more perfect democracy. And while some of his policies became debatable later, he really built the nation in terms of the social justice system that we have today. And by the time he left office, we had a booming economy. Number 6, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, of course, also inherited major crises and disasters from his predecessor, Jimmy Carter. He was faced with high inflation, high mortgage rates, threats from overseas, from the Soviet Union, and so forth. He handled all of that, brought us through, and made us a stronger nation as a result. Number 5 is none other than our current commander-in-chief, the guy who holds the Oval Office to this day, Joe Biden. Joe Biden, you got to give him credit. I mean, he came in, with dementia. He's still struggling with that, but he inherited what arguably would be the worst economy in American history ever. Also, one of the worst health crises that any American president has ever had to deal with. And so far, he's been bringing us through it. We'll see whether or not he deserves a higher rating in the future. He's only been president for a year, but whether he serves only 4 years or gets reelected and serves 8 years, we'll see if maybe, his accomplishments will award him a right to be at a higher rating. Coming in at number 4 is none other than our current commander-in-chief's former boss, Barack Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama also inherited a major crisis from George W. Bush, major economic collapse, social demoralization, and he, even before he got elected, was faced with having to bridge the racial divide in this country in order to bring people together and, set the standard for racial justice and equality going forward. And he built, an economy and created a system that would be, in hopes it would be fairer for everybody. And also set his signature piece of legislation, of course, was Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Number 3 is Jack Fitzgerald Kennedy. All right. Now, John Kennedy is arguably one of the best presidents ever, no matter what side of the political aisle you come on, okay? Faced with having to deal with the Soviet Union, the Bay of Pigs invasion, the nuclear arms race against Cuba, and so forth. I mean, it was a major disaster for him. Okay. Plus, even though he didn't inherit a bad economy, he came in with a decision as to how to make the economy better for everyone. He presided over major national conflicts with regard to civil rights, and he led the nation through all of that and made us a more perfect union. Number 2, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay, FDR is one of the infamously greatest presidents ever, and regardless of where you are on the political aisle, if you don't like his domestic policy with the New Deal and so forth, you have to agree he was a great commander-in-chief in leading us through World War II. And if you're not much of a warmonger and you tend not to agree with that stuff, I'm sure you like the New Deal. So either way, FDR was able to bridge the political gap throughout this country and lead the nation into the future and secure us both economically, socially, and safely. All right, in the future. I mean, he's got it all. Plus, he also inherited, the Great Depression, the number 1 Great Depression ever, okay? And I failed to mention, but I should mention this before I move forward. Barack Obama, of course, inherited, the second worst crisis that we had ever had up until, this current one that Joe Biden inherited. All right, the worst economy since the Great Depression. Well, the Great Depression was what FDR inherited. And so you got to give the guy credit. Plus, he was paralyzed from the waist down and was still able to lead the country through some of the toughest challenges ever in our history. Okay, and finally, number 1, I'm sure many of you saw this coming. You got to put this guy at number 1 because you'll see why in a minute. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, I argue, is the best president that this country has ever had. He was the one who ended slavery, one of the greatest accomplishments that America has ever had, on their table. He succeeded in holding the Union together, bridging the racial divide, ending slavery, creating the standard for equality and civil rights in the future. And he's still debatably one of the best presidents ever, no matter where on the political aisle you stand. Okay, he was, mildly religious. And, it was tough for him to rebuild the economy after many failed presidencies that came before him and make one of the greatest accomplishments that this country can put on its resume, ending slavery and creating the standard for civil rights and equality going forward. So there is the list. Okay, the 12 best presidents in United States history. If you disagree with the list, please comment. If you agree with my list, please comment. Either way, like, share, and subscribe to this video and to my channel, and spread this video around so that others may enjoy the content as you did. All right, until then, happy President's Day. God bless America. God bless all of our former presidents, whether it's the 12 best, the 20 worst, or anybody else in between. God bless all of you fellow patriotic Americans, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful President's Day and a wonderful year going forward. On that note, signing off and goodbye. Peace.